Hey guys, Basil and Wolf from Grayson Hobby, and today we have another video on new receivers from RadioMaster.
So this is the R86 and R86C, two variations of a 6-channel receiver from RadioMaster. They're in their budget line, which is great, cheap, affordable receivers.
These are kind of dedicated towards fixed wing?
Yeah, these are more primarily for like fixed wings planes and all that, yes.
Alright, we're going to show what they do, what they don't do, and compare them to some other receivers right now. Like always, if this video you find it useful and helpful, hit that subscribe button and be sure to support Grayson Hobby. If it's pack of props, batteries, quad, everything. Everything ships from right here, right? Mm-hmm. Located right outside Atlanta, Georgia. It's usually about 2 days to the entire east coast of the country.
Also check out our Facebook group. There's a lot of tech support, help, stuff like that. We got a pretty good little community.
Yeah, everybody's helping each other out.
Everybody's been really good, very helpful in it.
Before we start, let's get it out in the open. My favorite thing to ask Will.
The protocol?
Will these work with my Spectrum radio?
They will not work with your Spectrum radio. These are based off a Free Sky protocol, D8.
Okay.
So it's an 8-channel protocol, D8 mode, so you have to have a radio that supports it. The latest generation of Free Sky radios, believe it or not, don't even support it. So if you have a RadioMaster, Jumper, older Free Sky radios, not the newest generation, not the Access ones, but older ones, they will support it. So that's pretty much at least 90% of the population of Free Sky out there.
Servos. We always miss this. We've talked about this. But
standard servos, anything, you know, you're like 4 gram, 5 gram, 6 gram, 7 gram, 9 gram, 16 gram, 32 gram, 48 gram, whatever. As long as it has that black 3-pin plug, pretty much like all your speed controls have and all that. If you have one of the specialty servos with the little micro connectors like E-flite and all that uses, no, those won't work. But your standard park flyers, like your Dynamo planes, E-flite planes, Tower Hobbies planes, stuff like that.
Park Zone, I think Park Zone.
Yeah, Park Zone, that's E-flite.
And then I guess Free Wing, all those, right?
Yeah, Free Wing, those other.
All right, it's basically everything.
So majority of your park flyers to standard size servos, even full size servos and all that, they're going to use a standard universal style JR plug.
All right, get that out of the way first. All right, now we're gonna.
So let's talk about the receiver. In the RadioMaster lineup here, there's 2 more receivers. More and more receivers are coming. So this is what we got here, the R86 series, the R86 and the R86C. The R86C it has the addition of S-Bus, and even though these are both 6-channel physical receivers, by adding the S-Bus, it makes it an 8-channel if you're using S-Bus output.
Okay, and really the C-beams case?
Sure, I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is a hard plastic, and this is more of a softer plastic. So this reminds me of the old, you said it reminds
me
of the
6100, 6110s. Basically, that's kind of that concept there, whereas this is more like their hard case series. It actually reminds me, the looks of it reminds me of one of the little FlySky receivers. But. Okay. All right, so let's take one and go over it and take the other one. We'll start with the R86 here. So the R86 has a soft case on it, so it does have give to it, obviously. It's like a little plasticky wrapped around case. It does have removable antennas. They are, I believe, 15 centimeters in length, roughly. Let's double check that. Yeah, about 15 centimeters here. So the overall length of the antenna going from the connector out is 15 centimeters. To give you an idea of that, it is a dual antenna, so it is diversity. It is running the D8 protocol, so it's got the 8-channel protocol with D8 for FlySky style radios or Jumper or RadioMaster, etc. It does support RSSI, so when you bind it, it will feed back RSSI to your transmitter. Other than that, it's pretty much your standard 4.5 to 6 volt roughly operating range. So you either use a UBAC, you can't plug in like a 2-cell LiPo to it, it'll fry it. But pretty much other than that, this is just a nice lightweight one. One thing to show you on this, I'm going to go ahead and pull this case off, because even though it's a soft case, RadioMaster did take a little bit of extra time and put some foam padding in these guys. So I'm going to pull this case off here so you can see, because we like taking things apart here, right?
Yep, and then we don't know.
But they actually put a foam block top and bottom to protect it. So it does have, even though it's a soft case, it does have a little protection. The bind button's right there, so it is a little harder to get to the bind button. You do have to use something to push down there, like a toothpick or something. The backing, you can see there, for anybody that wants to know, there's chip there, standard pinout. Nothing super fancy. It's just basically a 6-channel. They are, again, removable antennas. They are replaceable. The R86 uses a standard servo pinout, so any of your standard servos that you get nowadays, and the signal will go across the top like so. So you have signal, positive, and ground at the backside. So the label side is signal side.
So you say standard servo.
Standard.
That means pretty much anything.
Molex plug, yeah.
Pretty much anything, right?
Most servos, unless it's a micro with a little white connector.
Right.
On. But your standard parkflyer servos, up to full-size servos, generally have the servo.
Right, and there's no little tabbies, because there's...
Yeah, there's no polarity protection or anything like that. They're just, literally, it's just an end pin. Again, it's like the old Spectrum 6100, 6110s, 6115s, stuff like that.
Okay. So that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So next we got the...
so moving on from that...
The C version.
Goes to the R86C. Now the R86C has a hard plastic case on it. The bind button is easier to get to, so if you have a hard time binding things through the old way of like pushing it with a pokey, then this is a little easier then, guys, because you can just use a fingernail.
Wait, hold on. Is pokey a technical
very
term?
technical term,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
You know what? I'm
Just making sure we got the...
fighting words.
Okay.
All right.
So there's one thing real quick. I noticed it says key.
Yeah, that's the bind button.
Right, but usually it says bind, right?
Yeah,
he says
I guess
bind,
whatever flavor of the week they have.
and he says key. Well, all right.
So this one right here, it is 1 through 6. So these are your physical channels. If you are running like a flight controller or a gyro or something like that, and you need S-Bus out, you'd plug it in just this pin here, which would provide the S-Bus signal to your flight controller or gyro, and would give you 8 channels, not 6. So even though it's physically a 6-channel receiver, it has the ability to go 8-channel if using S-Bus. If you have to plug in servos, you're limited to 6.
Okay. So how's the antenna length?
The antenna length is exactly the same. It's both another 15-centimeter antenna.
Okay.
Range of these two receivers should be the same.
And
the biggest difference is the hard case, the easy to bind button, and the S-Bus out. So,
okay.
But it is physically bigger.
So, will all my servos fit in there? I noticed we have...
So this is a keyed plug. So if you have the Fataba-style servos with the little tabs on them, you'll still be able to plug into those. So you'll see signal will go across the top as well.
Okay.
But it'll take like JR, Spectrum, High-Tech, Airtronics, all those good things from any of the modern servos that are standard-size servos.
Like, so, I don't know. Did you say Spectrum?
Your park flyers, yeah. Spectrum, JR, High-Tech.
So any kind of Dynam?
Yeah, Dynam, JX servos, all that good stuff.
All right, especially everything that we sell. All right, so if I had the choice between the 6, the 86, and the 86C...
If space is an issue, then I would probably go with the R86. This is great for those little micro hand-launched planes and all that. Like I had a bunch of little 50mm EDF jets. This would be perfect for it because I used to use a Spectrum receiver, almost identical shape. The R86C is hard case a little bit longer, so this would be more, probably a larger plane, something like that. But either one will get the job done, so it's really at the end of the day, if you find like pushing down into the hole because it's a little harder to get to, but the bind button is an inconvenience, then go with the R86C. Otherwise, the R86 works just every bit as well. The other thing is this one, if you take off the case and all that and shrink tube it, it will still be smaller because it is physically smaller.
So
let's decase this one.
We didn't take the case off. We haven't broken that one yet.
All right, this one's pretty easy to do. However, keep in mind the little bind button is a separate piece. It will fall out.
Ooh.
So let's just leave that aside there. I just dropped it. But you'll see the receiver there. Very nice quality. I mean, there's really not much to these, I guess, in reality. But
so, yeah, there's your removable antennas.
Yep,
okay.
removable antenna, which I just popped the other one off with my hand. Oops. So...
And there's really, other than changing the antenna, there's no reason to take it apart.
Yeah, I mean, if you chop an antenna off, but, all that, you got your bind light there. The bind procedure, both of these receivers, going back to the R86 as well, they do have a receiver-based failsafe. So in the first 10 seconds of powering up after it's been bound, if you push the button, so if you leave your radio, throttle down, kill, all that stuff on, whatever you want it to failsafe at, within the first 10 seconds of being on, you push the bind button, and it will set the failsafe, which it is mentioned in the manual. So if you read that little pamphlet, like one page.
We did a video on the 168, how to do the bind.
Yeah, so the D8 ones are a little different than the D16, so just double check that. But as far as how that goes, another nice thing about this one is if it is decased, it actually does still say what the channels are. So that's kind of cool. That's really nice. Cool. So guys that are trying to shave a few grams or get it more slimline compact, if these things are cheap enough, you can cut the pins off, solder directly if you have to make a really small, skinny setup.
Or get the smaller one. How would you?
Well, I'm saying if they're soldering directly from like hotliners and stuff like that. Some of these guys have fuselages that are really, they're very tight, inch in diameter or less, But basically, if you need it, it's still labeled, which is nice. A lot of those older knockoff receivers for Spectrum and all that used to be shrink tube back in the day, so kind of reminds me of that in a way. But again, this is a D8 mode, so free sky, D8 protocol.
RadioMaster Jumper.
RadioMaster Jumper, etc. Yeah.
And a bunch of others. But well, that's good. Thank you for the info. And I'll be sure to be using one of these on my next little build.
So if you guys are trying to get a size reference, this is a very classic receiver from Spectrum. It's been around for years, so if you're still flying Spectrum, I'm sure you've seen this one. The AR6100E, the E is just an end pin.
Discontinued a long time ago.
But just to give a size reference of this guy, the case is literally pretty much the same. And the closest equivalent, the R86, is actually smaller.
Okay.
So that'll give you an idea of what the size of these are.
That's exactly when I was in the beginning. When we first saw this, we immediately both of us thought this receiver.
Yeah, they just basically made their own version of that. But these are...
although this doesn't bind to Spectrum. This is Spectrum.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying as far as those of you guys that used to use Spectrum, because I'm sure 90% of the people in this hobby have probably started with Spectrum. That bind button's gone!
Where's the bind button?
Right here. Oh, look at that. So easy to find, right?
All right. Put back together.
Yeah, this is the fun. No, I didn't drop it.
Is it backwards? Good job.
I just smushed the little label.
All right, well, we'll just put that one on the shelf. Hey, Dan, you need a receiver? What'd you find out?
All right, and just a heads up, guys. First batch issue again. On this receiver, they did do the logo upside down. The signal is actually the top, not the bottom. So that's how you fix it. Or just take it off and throw it away. But signal should be the top, not the bottom. So definitely look at the pins. Signal's across the top. Kind of ignore the sticker if it's backwards. Take it off, throw it away, switch it around, whatever you got to do. Well, later batches I'm sure will be fixed, but this first batch
just to be clear, let's plug one in so we can get a good picture of what it should look like.
It's the green.
And do it like this. All right, so there you go. Really, this just adds 2 more receivers to the whole line of RadioMaster fixed wing. Now there's 2, 4, 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice thing because where other companies have cut back and quit releasing so many variations of a receiver that can fit your models better, RadioMaster gave you options of longer receivers, skinnier receivers, taller receivers, narrower receivers.
Lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
Oh my, yeah. But basically, it's, you know, there's not a one-size-fits-all because every plane is different. So if you have a hotliner, if you have a park flyer, if you got a profile job, depending on what kind of plane you have, might vary what receiver you want. So I think all these receivers have a place somewhere in your fleet.
Yep.
You know, because let's face it, guys, we all have like probably 20 planes in the hangar right now. So
we do.